This is a reading of A Wolf Story by James Byron Huggins. I'm not a professional, but I love my kids and my grandkids, and they love this story as much as I do. Book 1. I only am left, and they seek my life to take it away. Chapter 1. Saul sensed death on the wind and stood to face his enemy. Old eyes, wise in years, scanned the surrounding woodline, reading every gentle movement of leaf and branch. Yet he saw no predator hidden within the swaying leaves. For a long moment he watched with keen brown eyes, searching, he felt, for ghosts. But there was nothing. The forest was as quiet as a grave. He rubbed his furry face with both paws, then raised his long ears and nose to the sky, knowing every scent, every sound. Uneasily he poised, tasting a fear he could not find. Then he slowly lowered his head, wondering. Beneath the grassy knoll where he stood guard, a hare colony played and grazed in sleepy contentment. Saul shook his shaggy gray head. Was it his imagination? Was there truly anything to fear? He scanned the forest again, trying to peer through the green leaves into the dark woods beyond, but he saw nothing. He hesitated, doubting. The colony seemed content and carefree, completely unaware of this strange sense of doom that hovered over him. Some were quietly digging for roots, though most were sleeping and resting beneath the warm sun. Even the elders, gathering near the burrow hole, were sleepy with the day, seemingly unaware of any threat or danger. Saul sat back on his four paws, the points of his long ears descending to the ground behind his front shoulders, and sighed. Perhaps he was too old to be king, he thought. Soon it would be time to pass the burden of leadership onto younger, stronger shoulders. Saul heard Wingate's heavy stride coming up behind him, long before the burly hare arrived. "How goes it, Saul?" Wingate laughed, resting his gigantic frame beside the old hare. "A good day, is it not?" Wingate's broad, expressive face was dominated by two huge black eyes that hid nothing. His warm coat was dark, with small white dots running down his back. Saul harbored great affection for Wingate. The big hare was exactly what he seemed to be, large and lovable and easy to be with. Yet none was braver or quicker to defend the weak. "We have a good life here in the field, far from wolf or man," said Wingate. "It was a good choice we made so many years ago to settle near the deep woods, eh? For myself, though, I think I've eaten too many berries." And laughing at his own joke, Wingate put a wide, dark paw on Saul's shoulder as friends would do. Saul felt the smile on his face. It was good to have a friend like Wingate, though he could be loud and boisterous and rowdy. But he was a true friend. If danger came upon them, this huge, clownish hare would be the first to stand in the gap. He had the heart of a king, never failing to embrace the sad or laugh with the joyful. And Saul had often wondered if Wingate would take his place in the pack one day. Still laughing at himself, Wingate turned his funny, furry face toward Saul. "And why are you so sad, my friend? You have that old look in your eye. Do you see something? Is there something there?" "I always see something, brother," Saul replied. "Or hear something, or sense something. That is the burden of being king. But I'm not sure if anything is there. I have watched all day, and sometimes I think I see a shadow moving somewhere in the forest, but there is no sound, no scent." Saul feared that his voice sounded frail with age and weak. Consciously, he stiffened his shoulders as he spoke again. "Perhaps it's nothing," he said finally, "and I don't know, but I feel something." Whether the danger was real or imagined, Wingate received the news with characteristic seriousness. In times of threat, the burly hare was instantly transformed. Where there had been a smile, the dark face became menacing, a promise of deadly combat. His dark head turned rapidly to the surrounding woodline, and his broad, battle-scarred shoulders seemed to swell, challenging whatever would threaten that colony. Saul knew those wide black eyes were swifter and sharper than his, and as he watched the dauntless head scan the forest gloom, he sensed that, among their kind, never had there been one greater in strength. After a moment, Wingate shook his head. "I see nothing, my friend," he said uneasily. "Perhaps something passed and is now gone?" "Perhaps," said Paul, but he did not relax. Somewhere, hidden within the shrouded forest, he sensed something more than darkness. But the signs were wrong. He lifted his head to watch the lofty trees. The sparrows and the swallows continued their songs. Squirrels leaped and danced in the swaying branches as lightly as the wind that swayed the gentle grass of the glade, where crickets carried their raking cry. He gazed again across the glade, unable to lose his doubts, for despite the sunny calm, he felt the danger so real, so close. He hesitated, sounding the alarm only because he did not wish to run from shadows, nor did he wish for the children to see such a display. But there was something there he knew, he felt. "I will stay with you," Wingate added, settling in closer to Saul's gray mane, "and we will watch together for a while. Perhaps 4 eyes will see what 2 eyes cannot, eh?" And he laughed again. Saul smiled and nodded, grateful for the company of an old friend. Beneath the low hill where they watched, Thurgood and DeSoto raced across the small field. The two little hares were notoriously prone to trouble, sometimes by chance, but mostly of their own making. They never tired of playing and playing, sometimes having so much fun that they did not notice an open approach of danger. But they were young and they would learn. Saul thought it was best to let them enjoy the freedom of youth before they assumed the hard burden of guarding the colony. DeSoto leaped into the air, swatting the top of Thurgood's shaggy head with a yell, and then tore off, screaming in a new direction. Thurgood gave chase, laughing and grabbing at his friend. Wingate shook his head. I cannot count the number of times we have saved the lives of those two. Saul laughed despite himself. They are the reason why we are here. The big hare nodded solemnly, and the two rested in silence. After a time, the golden orb of sun began its slow descent, and the evening beamed with scattered crimson rays. Touched by the majesty, Saul spoke with eyes that gazed beyond the glade and forest and sky. I was king before you were born, my friend, and I have been king since. Over the long years, I have taught you the way of faith, by my example and by my words. You know, as well as I, that we are children of the Lightmaker, and you know that the servants of the Dark Lord hate us because our faith proclaims their doom. For they will destroy us if they can. They do not grow weary of plotting against us, so we must never grow weary of guarding against them. That is why I have found great comfort in you as an elder. You have always been faithful, protecting the little ones. You have stood against foes far stronger than that of yourself. But for the grace of the Lightmaker, you would have been destroyed. But he preserved your life so that you would do a greater work for him one day. Now, though, I feel the heavy weight of age upon me, and I sense the end of my days is near. When I have gone the way of all flesh, it will be time to choose a new king. I hope it will be you, my friend, because you are willing to stand alone. You are willing to answer all the questions of the scornful, despising their scorn, and you are willing to die protecting those you love. Only remember this. Always the battle begins in the spirit, but it is war in every dimension of our life, spiritual, mental, and physical. As in any real war, some of us will die in the fighting, so prepare yourself. Servants of the Dark Lord, in themselves alone, are strong, for flesh has a strength. But we struggle against more than flesh. We struggle against the Dark Lord himself, the one who never sleeps or rests. In his hard silence, Wingate's head seemed framed by strength beyond flesh, his brow stern. He looked at Saul, grim and defiant, almost as if, even in this quiet moment, he was in some cosmic conflict with their unseen foe. Then the burly hare turned his gaze back toward the field, nodding solemnly. The sun continued its slow descent, and a heavy, unnatural cold began to fall while they watched together on guard. Mothers quietly gathering roots screamed as Thurgood and DeSoto catapulted across their paths, and an elder raised a pot to swat the two ruffians as they hurtled past, causing Saul to smile at the antics. The old hare began to feel easier, more comfortable, even though the disturbing sensation refused to depart. Perhaps, he thought, he was simply too old to trust his instincts. Wingate was alert, yet sensed no danger waiting within the leafy gloom of the woodline. Saul wondered if the shapeless spheres he sensed might not be the ghosts of battles past. He had learned long ago that some scars never healed. Thurgood leaped on DeSoto's back, and they crashed headlong into a low stump, and they were off again, DeSoto in pursuit, racing after Thurgood as he sped fast and low to outrun his pursuer. Saul sensed the deadly shadow rising from the forest floor even as the two hares neared the woodline, and his desperate cry of alarm shattered the quiet field. But it was too late. DeSoto caught his friend leaping upon his back with a shriek and a furious tangle of legs, and the two disappeared into the green foliage. "Get everyone to the hole!" Saul shouted to Wingate. Wingate responded with a bellowing alarm. Like a gray thunderbolt, Saul hurled himself down the steep slope towards the forest. His grace and speed made lies of his years as the ground sped away beneath him, and his ears were laid back by a great rushing of wind. In seconds, he was at the spot where the children had vanished. Then, as his flashing legs brought him to the forest edge, he twisted to avoid collision, for the young hares had burst free from the forest, faces white with terror, screaming in fear.